From the KELOLAND Digital Desk, I'm meteorologist Scott Mundt, and this is the latest edition of Weather or Not. It is Thursday, October 16th. We'll put together a pheasant forecast for you. Also, some late warmth statistics. We'll put it that way. We'll see what the latest dates for hitting 80, 90 degrees, what those dates are in KELOLAND for different cities. The pattern, we'll take a look at that, if that is changing anytime soon. And, of course, we'll end with our snow trend. But let's begin with Futurecast. As we are looking at a warm day today, we'll have our temperatures probably hit the 70s, a chance for 80-degree heat to return to at least parts of eastern and southeastern KELOLAND today. We'll have numbers in the lower 80s if we do see enough sunshine in Yankton, a strong southerly wind. But as you do see Futurecast here, as we get into the later part of the afternoon, you do notice that we do have scattered showers, thunderstorms that will develop. This is along and behind a cold front that is moving across eastern South Dakota. So we will have our strong southerly winds. Did you notice the humidity this morning? Some thicker humidity. We have dew point temperatures in the lower 60s, or had dew point temperatures in the lower 60s this morning. So we do have the humidity in place. I think as this front moves through, that will help lift the atmosphere, lift the air, to bring in these better chances for showers and thunderstorms as we do get into the afternoon and evening across eastern South Dakota, even lasting into the early part of tonight. But as they do travel to the east, they are showing a weakening trend. So that is something that we'll continue to monitor as we go through this evening and tonight. And then for tomorrow, you do notice that we'll have dry skies. That's tomorrow morning. We'll have westerly winds. We'll try to bring in cooler air, and I think we will, but temperatures will still be above average. I think a lot of us will have highs in the 60s as we do go through the day tomorrow. Thickening cloud cover on Saturday, and look at those showers trying to enter eastern South Dakota, maybe around the midday hour. We can see a couple of scattered showers. Now, this is a little faster as compared to what we saw earlier this morning, as it's trying to bring those showers in a little earlier across eastern South Dakota. That's midday anywhere from Aberdeen, Siston areas to the south and to the southwest. And we'll also have stronger northwest winds as we go through the day on Saturday. The rainfall amounts for today and tonight, we might be able to pick up an additional quarter inch of rain in western South Dakota. And we're thinking around a half, maybe even a little bit more, we'll say, for parts of eastern and southeastern KELOLAND. With any of these thunderstorms that may develop, we'll have to watch for some areas to pick up maybe just a little bit more than a half inch of rainfall. And again, these are totals that will take us through the day today and through the overnight hours. So our forecast for today, we'll have temperatures in the 60s and 70s. I also put in the chances of rain for all these cities as well. And it's late today for Sioux Falls. I know we've had a couple of morning showers, thunderstorms that tried to come in from Nebraska, and they made their way into south central South Dakota during the early morning hours. And there will be maybe a couple of lines of showers and thunderstorms that can extend from south central South Dakota into northeastern KELOLAND. And then cloudy skies with the rain showers across western South Dakota's Rapid City has a hard time getting out of the 50s today. And for tonight, it will be cooler. Overnight lows will fall to the 40s and 50s. Stay with us. We'll have a lot to talk about and be joined by meteorologist Brian Karstens coming up on this latest edition of Weather or Not. Welcome back to Weather or Not. Brian, the first thing probably both of us noticed when we walked outdoors this morning, the humidity, the thicker dew point.
Yeah,
Was that something?
It was back. You know what else I noticed going out when I walked out the front door this morning? The moths were back.
Oh, you had some, okay.
So I figured, well, they probably blew in with the south wind because they've been gone. I haven't noticed them at all the last few days. And then all of a sudden this morning, now they weren't that thick, but, you know, they're kind of around.
Oh, yeah.
That south wind tends to carry insects and things
it's warmer.
back.
A warmer day. I mean, we already had a morning temperature of what, 62? Yesterday's high was 61, I think.
Yeah, pretty amazing to see that jump overnight. And so with it, by the way, last night too, there was a lot of fog. About 8 o'clock, 8:30, it was sure crowding in on Sioux Falls there.
And I
for
think
a while.
the Sioux Falls visibility fell to a half mile.
Mm-hmm.
Did not meet my criteria, we'll say, when I go back and look at the stats of thick fog being a quarter mile or less.
Not quite.
But other areas have in
Yes.
KELOLAND, and I'll probably see those when I go back and check those stats. But was it yesterday, just looking at the fog we had, I did that 90-day thing anyway, and it was January 13th.
Yep.
Just as a refresher.
It's on the calendar.
It's on the calendar. I'm sure a lot of people marking that down, too, that like to follow that. Important weekend coming up.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Pheasant opener here, and we always try to at least pay a little more. We give that a little more attention, of course, on our daily broadcasts as we get closer and closer to Saturdays. So, question is, what's the weather going to bring? Now, last year we had some wind out there on the prairies, and of course, windy days can make a difference. Let's talk wind here for a minute. We'll start with day one. Wind speeds today, 30 miles an hour or a little more, East River, east of the James Valley. So we'll be talking about that. We do have a northwest wind coming in for Friday. So tomorrow's weather picture actually not bad, really. Pretty decent wind in the afternoon, maybe 10 to 20, Sioux Falls. Those are not big numbers. But here we go. This is Saturday, and see that? It's northwest flow. So we right away see winds here. Everybody has a northwest wind. It's just a matter of how strong that wind is. But Aberdeen, Mobridge, Pierre, we put winter on there too. 30, 35 at least, looks like where the wind gust is. And, of course, your peak winds will be during the afternoon. Winds will come back down Saturday night, and then they turn around to the south on Sunday. So when you look at the 2 days, Saturday versus Sunday a lot less wind, Scott, and pretty nice, actually.
A better chance to stay dry, too.
Correct, yes. And you're right about that. We'll have to talk about precipitation here in just a second. Let me skip over to this graphic. I showed this one during the broadcast this morning on KELOLAND. And this is the winter South Dakota Saturday forecast. So we got 50s. We're kind of assuming here a mixing environment. So in other words, the wind is already kind of in that 10 to 20 mile an hour range to start. But you notice how it goes up, 33, 33, 36. Those are raw plotted wind gusts in the forecast. And so temperatures are likely to hold in the 50s, especially with the assumption that we have some clouds and, of course, a patch of showers. And that's the next thing is this rain chance. Probably right now the timing is the biggest challenge, as it always is in northwest flow. I say this a lot, and it is true that, morning versus afternoon showers. That's kind of what we're debating right now.
And I think there is a difference even from this morning. I think this morning it had it a little bit farther to the west. I think it's kind of increasing its speed a little bit, trying to bring it in a little sooner in the eastern KELOLAND.
And what I did here is I actually plotted the 3-hour increments of data versus the 6. So basically, as we get closer and closer to Saturday, we can use some of these bigger, like the European model, and we can actually start slicing those time windows up a little bit so we can kind of, narrow down and hopefully latch onto a better lock on timing, because timing is important, especially if we're out, hunting and all the rest, everything that's going on Saturday. So the assumption is we probably start Saturday morning with rain, West River, and again, it's showers. It's not like it's widespread soaking rain. This is just scattered showers, and I think that's a good way to phrase that. And then east into Sioux Falls, maybe Saturday afternoon. We have a 20% chance of rain in the forecast.
Probably feel a little raw, too, with that wind and looking at temperatures, 40s, 50s. So,
but if you're out hunting, you've got all that gear.
yeah, right.
I just talked to my
Might welcome it.
One friend last night that is an avid outdoorsman, and it's like, you get stories where it's like 80 or 85 degrees even. I mean, those kind of numbers,
too warm.
Nobody likes that. So if we're in the 50s, we got some wind. Okay, we'll make do with that. And Sunday, better. You if you like a little less wind,
maybe
dry. Some 60s.
Yep.
I like it.
looking better for the second half of the weekend as compared to the first half of the weekend.
That is correct.
Good way to sum that up. We'll talk about some late season warmth coming up. Stay with us. You're watching the latest edition of Weather or Not. Welcome back to Whether or Not. I put something together on late warmth, meaning when's the last time we hit 90? What's the latest we hit 90 on record? What's the latest we hit? And I went down the line 85, 80, 75, and 70, but I only made the graphic to go with 90 degrees and 80 degrees. And let's go ahead and bring that graphic up. The latest we hit 90 in Sioux Falls, that happened October 15th, yesterday, in 1958. And I think it was 91 or 92. I think 92 was the temperature on that date. And you see it's today for Aberdeen back in 91. It's later in the month in Pierre. That's their latest 90, October 29th. And it happened earlier in the month, October 9th in Rapid City. And then the date there for the latest 80 is in November for Sioux Falls, Pierre, and Rapid City. Close to the last of the month in Aberdeen in 1950. And you see those other three dates of November 8th, 1999. I mentioned that for Sioux Falls, Pierre, and Rapid City. That's when they hit their latest 80-degree day. And I also have, pardon me, I'm just looking at my cheat sheet, and I always like to do this too, just to show you proof, the latest temperature that I have as I hit the mic there. See that? So I did the expansion there for 85 degrees, 75 degrees, and for 70 degrees, it goes into, well, the second half of November for Sioux Falls and Aberdeen, and we're talking December in Pierre and in Rapid City. So that's the latest 70-degree day that they've had for those cities. And I do want to bring this up, too. This is a look at some warmth that's expected to come back for next weekend. This is just taking a look at the upper plains here compared to what the climate average is. And we'll have temperatures for a climate average as we get into the last, we'll say, week of October, easily in the middle 50s. So we'll have temperatures that will at least try to approach 70 degrees, and that's what this graphic is showing too. This is a computer model of the European for Sioux Falls, and we're looking at 70 right here for next Sunday. Okay, after we have a cool down going into next week. Some days above average, some days below. It has temperatures in the 50s and 60s, but once we get into next week, that's when the temperatures are expected to warm again, back to near 70 degrees, and then we have our temperatures falling to the 50s as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, going into the last couple of days of the month of October. Stay with us. We'll talk about the weather pattern that we're about to get into with meteorologist Brian Karstens after this. Well, we've reached the time of the show where we talk about the weather pattern. We like to throw this in, and we like to throw that snow trend in, too, and talk about these more or less toward the tail end of Whether or Not. I think it's a good spot for it.
Yeah, and it's just a conversation is all it is we kind of look at where things could be popping up in that long range. But so far, no mention of snow yet in the 7-day forecast.
Nope, but we'll go over that when the snow is trying to come in, okay? Let's go ahead and go over to our graphics here, and we're looking at the 500 millibar level. We've talked about this before. Low pressure, high pressure, where the troughs and ridges are trying to set up, and this thing runs through, I think, 5 times, if I let it run through 5 times. And you do notice that we do have a couple of systems trying to make their way across the central and the northern plains, especially as we get into the tail end of the month. There goes one there around the 28th. And before then, as Brian mentioned, we're caught in this northwest pattern where the timing just has to be worked out as to when we can bring in our rain chances. So let's go ahead and look at this a little closer. I think I do have one pause point in here, and that brings it in on the 28th. There's that ridge, tries to come in as we get into maybe next weekend. And then as we stop it here on the 28th, that's an area of low pressure that we'll have to watch, a cutoff low. Again, we're looking at the higher layers of the atmosphere, not necessarily the surface low. And in fact, I think, Brian, the surface low might be up here, and that's expected to move right along the southern Canada, if memory serves correctly, as to where the surface low is supposed to set up for the last couple of days of the month.
Just a quick observation, too, on that pattern is, it's just a model dictation of this, so it can change. But
I think I know where you're going.
But if this actually came to pass and the upper air structure looked like that, you can see the two lows there. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of a double barrel structure, and it has a negative tilt.
Negative tilt. I was waiting for you to say that one.
Yep. And if we ever say that on television, what we're talking about, I know what does that mean? Well, here's an opportunity to explain that a little bit. You can see the low, basically the thinking is the low track, or the way that the trough is oriented, is to the northwest. And a lot of times the importance of that versus a positively tilted trough, so you have negative and positive. Mm-hmm. And positively tilted troughs, you'll see on the forward flank of that structure, you'll see more troughing to the northeast of us. And what tends to happen is that these systems then, those troughs, they tend to shear out, or they get torn apart, and they weaken. So
the positive ones.
The positive ones. So the negative ones,
quicker too.
Yes, and so this negative, it's just a model, just one run, but let's keep an eye on it. See if it, when you see lows stacked up to the northwest in Alberta and British Columbia, that can be more interesting. And that's all I'll say.
And remember, yesterday's show, it fits the pattern. 40 to 45-day cycle of these closed lows that were slow moving, mind you, because they were cut off from the jet.
Yes, and that's a really big, important thing you just brought up. If it's a closed low, or if something like that structured down here into Nebraska, Kansas, if it gets kind of cut off, then it doesn't move as fast, and then that's what can create some heavier rain. But again, that's all thoughts right now.
And you said rain.
Yeah, I did say rain.
We're not connected to much cold air yet.
Not really, no. I mean, it would have to be, we'd have to get a lot more depth to that trough before we talk snow here. But maybe we'll give it some time. We'll let it cook for a couple days, see where it goes next.
I love ingredients, let it cook, let it simmer in the background. Those are all phrases you
we
like
throw all these little...
Those cooking phrases you like to use. I love it.
Ways to tell stories, right? Mm-hmm. Ways to tell the weather. And yeah, you've got a map now going into next week. We get into a zonal flow next week, or kind of a northwest flow.
At the time, maybe a couple of systems that will run through, but the moisture is very limited. Next week, when I was looking at things earlier this morning, we have our rain chances coming in later today, as well as this weekend. And then after Saturday, what I found, it's mainly dry for a while.
Yeah, next week is not a wet week right now.
No.
So, yeah, kind of needing to capitalize on some of the rain chances. And I'm still, I'm thankful I had some rain here the last couple of days, Scott. But honestly, I mean,
you can use more.
It's only going to go so far. I really need the trees in my yard. They really do need a couple of inches of rain. I mean, the roots are dry.
How are those leaves doing? Are they changing
to
a vibrant color, or are they more or less changing to drab, more brown?
I would say I don't have a whole lot of trees.
It depends on the tree, too.
I've got lindens. My lindens are late. That's a late changing one, and they don't drop their leaves until, it gets way into November. Yes. The maples, too, in my yard. See, I have maples. So, I don't have a lot of the early changing one, like the mountain ash and some of the others.
I don't have ash trees anymore.
Right, yours are gone.
So they're gone.
The city took those out.
Which you
have a little less raking to do.
Fine with me. Yes, I do.
But I do kind of miss, trees.
The color. I miss that color.
Yeah, trees are important. I know many people are still even talking of planting, or have recently planted. Fall planting of trees is a good thing. But your trees do need some moisture going into winter, your landscaping. So kind of keep that in mind. Maybe if you've missed out on some of the rain and you're in a dry pocket like I am, it never hurts to put a little extra water on those plants.
In the meantime, I talked about the next weekend's warm-up, where temperatures already pointing to 70 degrees on a couple of the models as we do get into next weekend. And that's the last weekend of the month, too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, and then think about this. We changed the clocks, too, but we have to get into that first weekend of November. It's not that far off, is it?
That's not that far away, Scott. That's a good weekend.
That's a good weekend.
Like that. I have to admit, I'm all for an extra hour of sleep.
And then I labeled this. This goes back to that cutoff low. Low pressure into the central plains. I just said, possible storm near the end of the month. And it's pointing to the 28th of October. We'll see the time frame of this. And also, we'll just have to watch and see where this goes as we get toward the tail end of October. But in the meantime, Brian, I really think a lot of these days will end up being above average. We'll have more above average days compared to below average days. But you have to think, too, that, the average high temperature, we're getting into the 50s now.
Yeah, the average.
The climate average highs.
Yeah, I think I told you
chilly
in the break,
day.
After the weather yesterday and the day before, 50s, cloudy, kind of rainy, drizzly, I felt like we just jumped from a month in a day almost. It just seems such
We went from more September weather, jumped into what, October weather almost.
But it makes
maybe even November, early November.
But doesn't it remind you that all of a sudden, if you get a cloudy day like that, the sunlight, no power to it, it seemed like just, everything kind of all of a sudden jumps on you like that. So it is a reminder that, we've had extended summer into fall a lot of these days. We get today, we'll get a couple more maybe next week where it can warm up later in the week.
Especially in the week, right. Later in the week going into the weekend. Snow trend, what's been going on with this? Well, here's a look at our snow depth. Really hasn't changed much from what we had yesterday. And going out the next 2 weeks, it brings more snow as well to our west and northwest. Nothing to speak of across the northern plains. So with temperatures that will remain at or above average many of these days, not overly worried about seeing any snow for the next week and a half to 2 weeks. But I'll continue to follow these numbers going out to the 30th of October, 10th of November, and 20th of November. What models are showing out of 100, showing the chance for measurable snow. You see, we got maybe a 20% chance by the 30th, and it goes up to 50% by the 10th, and close to 75% chance for Sioux Falls to get measurable snow by the 20th of November, and then those numbers are a lot higher as you work your way into western South Dakota. Those Rapid City numbers are 80%, 94%, and 99% by the 20th of November, Brian.
And so, that makes sense, though, that the numbers should go up. And I do think, though, as we look back on how October has panned out and what we had, as we started this whole snow conversation several weeks ago, I don't know exactly
mid-September.
Was it mid-September?
I think it was September 16th.
Yeah.
I started looking at that long-range model.
You remember I remember we were pointing out at that time that we had, out of the whole collection of ensembles, we were kind of sitting there, maybe 15, 17 of them would show some snow, which, of course, is still way below half. And, this is how it goes. So we ended up things tilting toward a warmer solution, not a major surprise. But keep watching it because obviously we're going to see what November, if we get a catalyst in here that can kind of switch things up. But the resilience, and I'll say it again, the resilience of this pattern to warming back up. We even talked this morning on air about 70s, and you mentioned before in this broadcast about how the latest 80 and 90 degree days, they're still a little ways on the calendar yet. Yes. Or at least the 81.
The 80s are, the latest 90 yesterday in Sioux Falls and today for Aberdeen.
So. Right. But it is, a possibility to continue some warmth.
Time keeps marching on, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And that's our time for today. Thank you for joining us on this latest edition of Weather or Not.